What up, Space Fam? Goes in here from Anime Opera, and I'm back at it again to discuss how strong another Demon Slayer character is exactly, and this time we're focusing on Gyutaro, the stronger part of Upper Moon 6. Last time I discussed Daki and said I'd make this one if that one got over 7,000 likes, and as of right now, that one has over 12,000 likes, so it's about time to do this one, and I'm hoping to more or less release this around the time Gyutaro is introduced in the new season, so hopefully I got close. If you do enjoy these videos and want to keep them coming, channel Demon Slayer Within and smash that like button with no mercy. Remember, smashing that like button is Hashira energy and passing is Muzan energy, so choose wisely. I'm also not sure what I should cover next, so leave a suggestion of the video topic you want to see in the comments. If you haven't, make this the video, subscribe, and this is crucial, hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications or you will miss future Demon Slayer videos and updates. While you wait for the next video to drop, feel free to check out my growing playlist that includes videos on all the Hashira, Demon Moons, and much more. Link to that is in the description. And now without further ado, let's jump into it, spoilers and all. Now this will all make more sense if you already watched the Daki video, link in the description, because in this one we're skipping over Daki's initial fight and jumping to Gyutaro's debut right after Tengen embarrasses Daki badly by cutting off her head as if it was just an afterthought. Daki has been built up to this point because of how well she did against Tanjiro, but also because she acted like she was excited to see a Hashira, and as we'll get into later, it's implied that she killed multiple Hashira in the story, so that sounds pretty OP. Clearly this generation of Hashira is special though, since for Tengen, she's too weak for him to even consider her an Upper Moon. He sliced off her head before she even knew what was happening. She doesn't die though because she's just a part of Upper Moon 6, and her neck actually has to be cut at the same time as Gyutaro's for them both to die. Anyways, while Daki is crying and insisting that she's really strong despite what Tengen says, Gyutaro comes out of her body. Tengen immediately gets way more serious than he just was, clearly sensing the difference in power between Gyutaro and Daki. He tries to quickly cut Gyutaro, but the Upper Moon is too quick. Gyutaro not only dodges, but takes Daki to safety and is trying to cheer her up, while completely ignoring our sound Hashira. Clearly, he doesn't feel threatened at all. Gyutaro then attacks Tengen, and he's so fast that Tengen has to use his forehead protector to block the attack. Gyutaro compliments Tengen, saying, "I was really trying to kill you. You're good. Yeah, definitely good," end quote. It clearly sounds like a compliment, and it is a compliment in a way, but he doesn't look worried at all. He's clearly being patronizing. And now Tengen knows he'll have a difficult fight ahead of him, in stark contrast to how easily he beat Daki. We also see at this point that Gyutaro's weapons of choice are two bony looking sickles. We later find out that Upper Moon 1 can create a sword using his flesh, and that's the case with these sickles too. Gyutaro just creates them from his own flesh. After promising to avenge Daki for what they did to her and explaining that he's jealous of Tengen's good looks and height, Gyutaro attacks. He can throw his sickles and they spin around and fly back as Tanjiro notices. Tengen succeeds in not only surviving but saving innocent people too. And you gotta love Tengen, he taunts the jealous Gyutaro even more by saying he has not one but 3 wives, and much like Zenitsu, Gyutaro says that's too much and he can't forgive that. We then see the other aspect of Gyutaro's blood demon art. Not only can he throw the sickles and have them come back, he can also use them or just parts of his body to create countless flying blades of blood. Tengen realizes this move is OP and he can't block all the blades while protecting the others, but in his flashy way he finds a potential solution, which includes creating an explosion that drops them down to the floor below. It's quick thinking and a great move that perfectly embodies Tengen's style. However, unfortunately for him, Gyutaro can even control the blood blades and makes them turn so that Tengen has to try destroying them. Gyutaro is one of the trickiest demons and his blood demon art embodies that. He can create countless airborne blood blades, already OP, then he can control them, and furthermore, as we find out, if even one hits you, which is almost guaranteed, it starts poisoning you, making you weaker and weaker over the course of the battle, while demons like Gyutaro don't really get exhausted. Up until now, Tengen was protecting people, but he hears that they fled by now, and so we can see how Gyutaro can do against an undistracted Hashira. Tengen's explosions don't seem to be that effective against the two demons, and now the two demons are going to fight as one, as they say. And since they are tied together, in a sense, you could try to consider Daki as a tool at Gyutaro's disposal, although she can also be seen as a hindrance, as we'll discuss later. Still, I think the fact that she needs to have her head cut for Gyutaro to die makes him a lot harder to kill, and there are even more benefits that he gets from working with her, as we'll see. Gyutaro goes on to say that Tengen is different from the other Hashira Gyutaro has killed. He thinks that Tengen is special and blessed with talent, but Tengen laughs in his face. He implies that they must have encountered some pretty weak Hashira if they think he's talented, since there are way more talented Hashira than him. Stone Hashira Gyomei, Mist Hashira Muichiro, and Flame Hashira Rengoku specifically cross his mind. And this goes with what I've been saying. I think this is an especially talented generation, since if you watch my Hashira rank from weakest to strongest video, you know I'd place Tengen near the bottom of this generation, and yet Gyutaro thinks he's exceptional based on his past run-ins with Hashira. Anyways, Gyutaro reveals the whole blood sickles are poisonous thing, and wonders why the effects aren't kicking in, to which Tengen replies that he's from a ninja family and he's built up a resistance to poison. Now, resistance is not immunity, so he'll still be affected eventually, but it's important to note that a lot of other fighters who had no resistance to poison would be much worse off at this point. That should be noted when considering how strong Gyutaro is, since Tengen is kind of a natural good opponent to fight him. Still, as mentioned, it does start to show, although it spreads slower than it would for most people. Gyutaro is happy to see the poison has an effect, saying that Tengen's stoic attitude almost bluffed him into thinking that it had no effect at all. The fight continues, and despite Tengen's cool tricks, like being able to use explosives with enough force to hurt demons, and being able to extend one blade's reach by holding the other by the tip, he doesn't have much success against Gyutaro. Even the extended reach, which is a clever trick that with Tengen's speed could probably allow him to cut off the head of many an unsuspecting demon, does not work against Gyutaro, who just appears to effortlessly block the attack. To Tengen's credit though, he does manage to slice off Daki's head again, to the point where her losing her head almost becomes an ongoing joke during this battle. Nevertheless, Gyutaro notes that bit by bit, they are gradually getting closer to winning against Tengen, and considering the fact that Gyutaro doesn't even appear to have broken a sweat yet, figuratively speaking, that's very impressive. And this makes sense, since Tengen is not only suffering from normal human exhaustion, but the more serious effects of poisoning as well. Luckily at this point, Zenitsu and Inosuke join the party, followed by Tanjiro too. Tanjiro, who often can smell the strength of his opponent, notably immediately senses that Gyutaro is the core one and smells different. The impact of his scent makes Tanjiro's throat numb. His hand is also shaking and he's not sure if it's exhaustion or his fear of Gyutaro. Since this is Tanjiro and not Zenitsu, a statement like that is saying a lot. It's at this point Gyutaro says many demon slayers have died trying to accomplish the easy task of beating him, including some Hashira. He says, and I quote, "I've eaten 15 of you and my sister 7 more," end quote. Now other sources like the Demon Slayer wiki say he at least ate 13 Hashira, but there's no link to the original source, whether it was an earlier translation of this part, another part in the manga, or a databook fact. Let me know if you got the direct citation and source in the comments. However, what he's saying here in the official Viz translation can be read in different ways. It suggests that he could have eaten 15 Hashira, or perhaps he means just 15 Demon Slayers in general when he says 15 of you. I do think 15 Hashira would be a safe bet, since he was obviously going to beat Tengen before the others show up, and as he mentioned, Tengen was stronger than the others. Still, if someone does have the direct citation and source for the at least 13 Hashira figure floating around the internet, let me know in the comments. The anime should also help clear up this specific point and number soon, but specifics aside, he's clearly strong enough to take out Hashira, and usually without much trouble. Anyways, Tengen has help here too, so he's not so easy to overcome. Zenitsu and Inosuke break off to fight Daki, while Tanjiro and Tengen focus on Gyutaro. It's at this point that we see Gyutaro's final form, if you will. He closes one of his eyes and opens another eye on Daki's forehead, which he can see through. We'll get into the specifics in a bit of how this works, but immediately you can imagine that at the very least this increases Gyutaro's vision of the battlefield and gives him two perspectives of what's going on rather than just one. Back to the fight, Tanjiro smells such powerful evil that goosebumps appear all over his body. He decides he needs to protect the poisoned Tengen and will swing his sword the moment Gyutaro moves even the tiniest bit. And then we see a giant flex from Gyutaro, where even though Tanjiro was so cautious, Gyutaro closes the distance and appears in front of Tanjiro with his sickle pointed right at our protagonist's neck. Whether it was from just relative slowness compared to Gyutaro, fear causing paralysis, or both, Tanjiro could not dodge on his own and would have died right there if Tengen didn't pull him out of the way. At this point, it's clear that if Tanjiro faced Gyutaro alone at first instead of Daki, Tanjiro would have already been dead by now and couldn't continue to grow throughout the battle as he will do. Tengen, for now at least, can keep up with Gyutaro's speed. In the meantime, Daki is confronting Zenitsu and Inosuke, saying with Gyutaro awake now, she can use her full strength. Gyutaro isn't just stronger than Daki, he makes her stronger too. And he even laughs at Tengen, saying these demon slayers aren't nearly as strong as Tengen was suggesting. He says they don't have Tsuguko or Hashira successor capabilities. For now at least, Gyutaro is so confident in his power that he views what he's seen and sensed from Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke so far as being laughably weak. It doesn't take long for Gyutaro to get the advantage against Tengen. As he's fighting Tengen from the front, some blood blades fly in from Tengen's back to cut him down. Even Tengen thinks there's no escape, and that could have been it, but Tanjiro comes into the rescue and blocks the blood sickles with his own sword. So not only was Tengen almost defeated right there, the block wasn't even easy for Tanjiro. As he states, these attacks are slowing him down. He needs to dodge and deflect because a direct blow would snap his sword. That's how strong the flying blood blades are. Thus, he switches over to water breathing for defense because it is better at deflecting attacks, and he knows that head-on Gyutaro will always be stronger than him. Another thing to keep in mind is Daki's sashes are attacking them along with Gyutaro and his blood blades, making it all the more difficult for them to avoid or block all the attacks. And even non-lethal wounds will poison and eventually slow them down, if not kill them. Tengen sees Tanjiro is in bad shape and realizes that if he doesn't finish this fast, all the demon slayers will die. In the meantime, we join Daki versus Zenitsu and Inosuke, and there too they have to avoid sashes and blood blades. Inosuke's sense of touch senses that the blood blades are especially dangerous and that even a slight nick would be enough to kill him. All our guys are clearly losing while Tanjiro can barely breathe while avoiding the ferocious attacks. But then one of Tengen's wives appears with what I can only describe as a multi-shuriken launcher. She launches them all, and thanks to that and the fact that the shuriken are coated in wisteria extract, aka demon poison, Tengen cuts Gyutaro's legs and they fail to regenerate immediately because of the poison. His body goes numb. Enough poison was used to paralyze a normal demon for half a day and to even immobilize a lower moon. But the question is, how well and long will it work on Gyutaro? Tengen and Tanjiro immediately move to cut off the head, but it's no use. Gyutaro, as an upper moon, recovers completely in a few seconds or less. He launches flying blood sickles from his stationary arms, and Tengen has to kick Tanjiro to safety before giving it his all to block the blood blades with his own attacks. Then in a split second, Gyutaro shows off his speed by appearing before Tengen's wife on the roof and grabbing her. The sashes are keeping Tengen from coming to the rescue, but luckily Tanjiro, who was underestimated, manages to use a combination of water and Hinokami Kagura to save Hinatsuru, the wife in question. Gyutaro is surprised by seeing such a fast maneuver since he assumed Tanjiro shouldn't be that speedy anymore. Gyutaro goes to attack Tanjiro, but Tengen appears at this moment and they launch a collective attack at Gyutaro's neck, only to have the upper moon block all three blades, one of Tanjiro's and both of Tengen's. Gyutaro launches another vortex of blood sickles, and Tanjiro and the wife are saved because Tengen pushes off the roof and takes Gyutaro with him. And even though Gyutaro is fighting Tengen, a Hashira, as Tanjiro notices, Gyutaro takes a swipe at our protagonist too with his blood blades, and it's also a close call. He's clearly got energy and concentration to spare, despite the fact that he's fighting and even winning against Tengen. It's around this point that Inosuke asks Tanjiro for help against Daki, showing that he and Zenitsu are having considerable trouble against the weaker part of Upper Moon 6. Tanjiro does stay to help them for a while, and together they end up taking Daki's head off. Inosuke is specifically the one that ends up cutting it off because his chipped dual blades are perfect for the task. Then he takes it like a football in his arms and starts running with it so she can't reattach it. At this point, we're wondering what's going on with Tengen and Gyutaro. Is Tengen holding his own against him without Tanjiro's help? And the answer is no, he wasn't able to hold him off on his own. Gyutaro suddenly appears and stabs Inosuke with his poison-covered sickle. It appears like he stabbed him in the heart, and that would have been the case with anyone else. But as we later figure out, Inosuke can shift his internal organs, and by doing so, he avoided a lethal wound. It's at this point that we see something else that's really scary. Tanjiro spots a bloody Tengen on the ground, seemingly lifeless, and he even has one of his arms detached, cut off. It looks like Gyutaro killed him. Then Tanjiro wakes up after one of Gyutaro's attacks to find that Inosuke, Zenitsu, and Tengen all look like they're finished. Gyutaro even calls Tanjiro lucky for surviving the previous attack and fall. Gyutaro goes on to say that Tengen, a Hashira, was weak. All he had going for him was determination, but the poison got him. His heart stopped according to Gyutaro, and so the Upper Moon understandably assumes he's dead. Gyutaro calls them all pathetic. At this point, Tanjiro notices that Gyutaro could kill him and that Tanjiro's arm is numb and he couldn't hurt the upper moon even if he tried. It's another chance that Gyutaro had to finish off Tanjiro, but instead of doing it, he questions him about his sister and enjoys insulting him for failing to protect his sister as the older brother. Instead of going in for the kill, he tortures Tanjiro by breaking the fingers on his hand. Gyutaro tries to convince Tanjiro to become a demon, but then Tanjiro uses his signature and legendary headbutt to show Gyutaro what he thinks of that idea. Gyutaro is more affected by the headbutt than he expected, and he realizes it's because Tanjiro stabbed him with one of the poison kunais at the same time that he headbutted him. Credit needs to be given to Tanjiro for strategy here because he even clawed open a perfume bag to hide the smell of the poison, so that Gyutaro would be caught off guard. Gyutaro's big mistake here was wanting to break Tanjiro's spirit before killing him, but he failed to do this and it allowed Tanjiro this opportunity. Tanjiro takes his sword, with his broken fingers and all, and goes to slice off the temporarily paralyzed Gyutaro's head. Daki is about to help her brother, but then Zenitsu appears from the rubble using a new OP version of Thunderclap called Godspeed that surprises Daki with how fast it is. However, Tanjiro cannot cut through the neck, and pretty soon Gyutaro starts releasing blood blades from his body again. Tanjiro refuses to give up even when Gyutaro completely recovers and goes for a fatal attack. It is at this moment when Tanjiro is saved yet again by Tengen, who is missing an arm and is looking very poisoned but is still fighting on. It turns out Tengen forced his own heart to stop to keep the blood from circulating and probably to surprise Gyutaro later. He also explains how he perfected his musical score technique, where he converts the rhythm of the enemy's attacks into sound so every fight becomes a song. He hears repeated phrases and can attack between beats and during the rests, dancing with his opponent. This ability takes time, but when it clicks against a particular opponent, he's much more effective. The only problem is he's very poisoned by now, so despite being able to read Gyutaro's moves, the best he can do is block his attacks. He can't go in for the neck, that will have to be Tanjiro. Gyutaro goes on to cut one of Tengen's eyes, but Tengen keeps going. Tanjiro goes to attack and Gyutaro sticks a sickle straight into his neck. It's at this point we're told exactly what the purpose of the third eye on Daki's forehead is. The narrator tells us that the thing that was giving Tanjiro and the others trouble was the fact that Gyutaro could fight while controlling his sister too. He saw what she saw, giving him 2 points of view on what was happening. He never let on he was able to do this, and it just made him seem more powerful. So I don't think he was choosing to control her the whole time, because he does later insult Daki for not doing a better job, but it is noteworthy that he could control her when he wanted to. He could thus control himself, the Bloodblades, Daki, and probably her sashes, while having multiple perspectives on the battlefield. It's truly insane to think about, and then you throw in the poison that should be slowing down his opponents the whole time. But our guys just don't quit, to Gyutaro's shock. They keep getting back up, despite being severely overpowered. To quote the manga, as time went on, they got used to it and began to adapt. And even with a sickle in his throat and coming out of his mouth, Tanjiro keeps going. He tries to swing at Gyutaro's neck one more time. He tells himself to summon 100 times the strength of a single blow. His eyes turn completely white and his mark evolves to look more like the mark of Yoriichi, the strongest demon slayer in history and first Sunbreather, who traumatized Muzan centuries ago. In this form, Tanjiro succeeds in cutting off Gyutaro's head. Even so, Gyutaro would usually be fine because Daki's head has to be cut off at the same time. But unfortunately for him, Inosuke joins Zenitsu and together they slice off her neck too. Finally, it looks like our guys won, but as a goodbye gift, Gyutaro's body releases some more dangerous vortexes of blood blades, more than ever before, in a final attempt to kill Tanjiro. Fortunately for Tanjiro, Nezuko was well enough to save him, and was even able to save him from the poisoning using her blood demon art, which burns demons and also Gyutaro's poison from the human body. She goes on to help Inosuke and Tengen too with the poison. It's safe to say that if not for Nezuko, Tanjiro, probably Inosuke, and definitely Tengen would have died from the poisoning. Tanjiro goes on to find the disappearing heads of Gyutaro and Daki arguing. They are blaming each other for the loss, and as mentioned, Daki says Gyutaro should have controlled her so she finished the Hashira instead of expecting her to do it on her own, so clearly he wasn't controlling her the whole time. Whether Gyutaro not taking over Daki was because of his trust in her, because of underestimating his opponents, or because he was too distracted with Tanjiro and Tengen is up for debate, but the ability to take over another person while fighting yourself is a crazy option to have. In the backstory, we find out that Gyutaro, even as a human, was good at fighting, so he worked as a debt collector. He beat up his marks whether they paid or not, and even his bosses couldn't keep him in line. He was even skilled enough as a human to kill a samurai after the samurai took a cheap shot and sliced him from behind. Gyutaro, carrying his dying sister, who was previously burned for taking the samurai's eye, runs into Upper Moon to Doma. It's not surprising that when Doma offers to save their lives by turning them into demons, Gyutaro agrees. If it means saving and protecting his sister, he doesn't even have to think about it. And then, as we know, his existing fighting skills get enhanced by his demon transformation and blood demon art. And he eventually becomes Upper Moon 6 along with Daki, who he's able to use as a tool in any battle. It's actually a really good backstory, and you can really sympathize with pre-demon Gyutaro since all he had was a sister. He lived and worked for her, and they burned her when he was away and had no shot of even trying to protect her. Now let's get into the aftermath. After the Gyutaro battle, Tengen retires with his 3 wives, a detail I like, and he definitely deserved to. And of course, even if he didn't retire, he would be less strong with one arm and eye, since this isn't One Piece. So you could say that Gyutaro took this Hashira out of commission as well, along with the other ones he killed. When Iguro is saying Tengen can't retire because there is no one of Tengen's caliber, even wounded, who can replace him, Tengen replies that there is someone who has grown strong enough, and he refers to Tanjiro. So in Tengen's view at least, Tanjiro is strong enough to replace him, which seems to imply that Tanjiro is Hashira level already. I say this because it illustrates Upper Moon 6's strength. It shows just how skilled the characters who barely ended up defeating Gyutaro and Daki actually were. At this point, between Tanjiro, Tengen, his wives, Nezuko, Inosuke, and Zenitsu, you can comfortably say that together they represented more than the power of 2 Hashira when they fought Gyutaro and Daki. Now, some Hashira are a lot stronger than others, but I'm talking about the minimum level involved to become a Hashira here, which is still an impressive level of power. The Demon Slayer Core Master is ecstatic when he hears that they won against an Upper Moon, and says the balance that hasn't shifted for 100 years has just tipped. Later, Muzan meets with the remaining Upper Moons and tells them that Gyutaro died. Muzan actually says he expected Gyutaro would lose, as he thought Daki was a hindrance. He points out that if Gyutaro had fought by himself from the beginning, he would have won. He also mentions that he shouldn't have fought after poisoning them, but that it doesn't matter anymore. This last part doesn't make much sense to me, since Nezuko could have just saved them from the poisoning anyways if Gyutaro ran away after poisoning them, but the earlier part is interesting. As mentioned before, if Gyutaro initially fought Tanjiro one-on-one, Tanjiro would have been dead and couldn't grow over the course of the fight enough to eventually cut off his head. This is very true, and throughout the fight, I mentioned times where Gyutaro could have won if not for this or that or the other thing, including the time he decided to torment and anger Tanjiro instead of just quickly finishing him off. This is how Upper Moon fights usually go. Everything goes perfectly so that our side barely comes out with the win, and it's satisfying because they win while the mangaka also gets to illustrate just how strong and overpowering the demons are. If we start looking ahead in the story, then obviously Gyutaro is not that strong by comparison to the stronger Upper Moons and to how strong Tanjiro eventually gets. But at this point in the story, he proved to be very, very strong. He and Daki killed Hashira in the past. They would have wrecked Tengen if it wasn't for all of the help from the others, and even with that help, Tengen still sent himself into retirement afterwards, citing not being able to fight with the wounds he received as a reason. If anything went differently, like if Nezuko couldn't expel Gyutaro's poison, if Inosuke couldn't shift his organs in impossible ways, if Gyutaro fought Tanjiro instead of Daki at first, if Zenitsu or Inosuke weren't there to occupy Daki, if Tengen couldn't stop his heart, if Tanjiro didn't evolve his Demon Slayer mark to look more like Yorichi's and go beast mode and so on, the results would have been different and way more tragic. They have to spend a lot of time recovering after this fight, and Tanjiro and Inosuke's post-fight conditions greatly worry Kanao and Aoi. So yeah, Gyutaro was strong and offered a great first victory against an Upper Moon. He could use blood blades that he could control mid-air or just release from his body in all directions like a bomb, and one touch could deliver enough poison to eventually kill the opponent. On top of that, he could control Daki and her sashes, and both of their heads had to be cut off at the same time for them to be killed, meaning it would be virtually impossible for one character, no matter how strong, to take them both out if they stayed far away from one another. It was arrogance and carelessness that got Gyutaro killed, and arguably Daki was a hindrance in certain ways, as Muzan pointed out. It's easy to underrate Gyutaro and gloss over him in videos about all the Upper Moons, but once you stop and analyze this arc and all of the details, it becomes clear that he was strong enough to give us one insanely good and satisfying fight. And that is it for this video about how strong Upper Moon 6 Gyutaro is. If you do enjoy these videos and want to keep them coming, channel the Demon Slayer within and smash that like button with no mercy. Remember, smashing that like button is Hashira energy and passing is Muzan energy, so choose wisely. Like I said, I'm not sure what topic I should cover next, so leave a suggestion of a video topic you want to see in the comments, one you're burning up to see. If you haven't, make this the video, subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications or you will miss future Demon Slayer videos and updates. While you wait for the next video to drop, feel free to check out my growing playlist that includes videos on all the Hashira, all the Demon Moons, and much more videos just like this one. Link to that is in the description. And until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys.